and Mrs. Jones. We got a thing going on. We both know that it's wrong, but it's much too strong to let it go now.
Good morning. I'm Erin Brinker.
I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we are on the Brink, the morning show on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and FM 102.3. So excited to have you with us this morning. It is cold out there.
It was 40 degrees when I got in the car.
40 or in the 40s?
No, it said 40.
It said 40?
It said 40.
Wow, that's kind of chilly.
My hands are still like popsicles.
Well, that's because you decided to wear shorts.
Well, and I didn't grab my gloves. A lot of times when it gets cold, I will grab my gloves, for the steering wheel. But my hands are like icicles because that steering wheel was really cold.
So today is the day that we observe Veterans Day. So it's a non-work day. There are some of us who are at work, namely us.
Yes.
But usually the freeway is full of trucks. It wasn't this morning.
Yeah.
And
traffic was nice, very light.
Which was good because we were kind of we were
running a little late.
Running a little late this morning.
So Erin, you've been in a real sort of Veterans Day kind of mood all weekend long. We've been watching movies. I know you've been doing a lot of reading and research online. For some reason this year, it's really grabbed your attention.
It really has, and I think it's because it's the 100th anniversary of World War I. And, when we study history in public schools, K through 12, we really kind of gloss over World War I.
Yeah, World War II is the big one, right?
Right. I mean, they kind of skip over, there was this war, people had the flu, they died. And that was it. And then it's the Depression and it's World War II.
Yeah.
And, we forget how horrific World War I really was.
Yeah, the trench warfare was devastating. These guys literally just gassed each other and shot each other and blew each other up for years.
Yeah, like they're like fish in a barrel blowing each other up because they were you knew where everybody was. You could see the trenches, and the pockmarks in the trenches are still. There's battlefields in France where they decided they were just going to leave it, so that as a reminder, leave the scars there as the reminder of what war does. And of course, the war itself didn't really finish until 1945.
Yeah,
there was a break. There was an armistice. There was a treaty. But the
World War II was a continuation.
It really was.
Yeah. So, Erin, you actually found a story that I thought was fascinating. Everyone likes to talk about how why we have Veterans Day on November 11th. And it's 11/11 at 11 a.m. and
11:11 a.m.
Yeah, and it's meant to. It's very symbolic. But you found a story about one of the last soldiers killed in the war. And literally, this guy was killed minutes before the armistice was to take effect.
So Augustin Trebuchet is buried beneath a white lie. His tiny plot in France is almost on the front lines where the guns finally fell silent at 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, after a 4-year war that had already killed millions. A simple white cross says died for France on November 10th, 1918. But that's not the truth. That's not exactly what happened. Like hundreds of others along the Western Front, Trebuchet was killed in combat on the morning of November 11th after a pre-dawn agreement between the Allies and Germany. But before the armistice took effect 6 hours later, the 40-year-old shepherd's death at almost literally the 11th hour only highlighted the folly of a war that became ever more incomprehensible to many nations drawn into the first global conflict. Indeed, on the tombs it said November 10th, 1918, to somewhat ease the mourning of the family, says French military historian Nicolas Troubac. Trebuchet had been running to tell his comrades where they would have a meal after the armistice. Other nations were also not spared in such casualties. With 2 minutes to go, 25-year-old Canadian Private George Lawrence Price was slain by a German sniper. About 150 miles away in France, a 23-year-old American, Harry Gunther, was killed by German machine gun fire 1 minute before the armistice. Wow. Historian Joseph Persico estimates the total dead, wounded, and missing on all sides on the final day are you ready for this? Was 10,900, adding to a war toll of 14 million people, including 9 million soldiers, sailors, and airmen from 28 countries.
Wow. That's it's shocking. I mean, knowing that the armistice was imminent, to shoot somebody and kill them?
Well, they were angry. They lost.
Yeah.
No, I'm not justifying it, but that's what they were feeling.
Yeah.
They lost, and they were going to take it out on somebody until the very last second.
Yeah.
So Tobin and I don't remember if we watched this Thursday. No, we watched it over the weekend. We watched this movie that was so good on Netflix. It's a foreign language movie. It's in German and in French, and the movie is called France.
France.
And
it's a name, though. It's not the country of France. It's France. It's Frantz. France.
Or if you're Canadian, Zed.
Yes.
And so it shows the story in the aftermath. It's a story that takes place in the aftermath of World War I. And it just ended. And it starts with a family in Germany where the I don't want to say widow because she was a fiance, but a fiance who was left behind is now living with her deceased betrothed family. Right.
Yes.
So she's living with his parents and, mourning. They're all mourning. And she's taking care of the grave of her late fiance. And she sees a man. Somebody had laid flowers on the grave. She asked about it. And the guy who was the caretaker of the graveyard and the church, because that's how they do it in Europe, said that there'd been a Frenchman. And so this Frenchman insinuates himself into their lives, and the story unfolds. And it really talks about how pointless it all is, right? Yeah. I mean, because there's mourning and anger but also patriotism on both sides.
Yes.
And, both sides are trying to heal. Both sides lost their sons, and it just shows the how do you say how pointless war is? I mean, yes. I understand that war needs to be fought in some situations. I don't know that it needed to be fought in World War I. But I understand that you had to push back Hitler.
Yeah.
That war had to be fought as much as hellish as it was. It had to be fought.
Yeah.
But the thing that strikes me, and perhaps this is why I was feeling this Armistice Day, this Veterans Day. I'm feeling this so strongly, and it's because there are people who are talking about war in this country, like civil war, and people have talked about this on my Facebook page on both sides, that we need to go to war. Yeah. And it's like, are you mad? Are you absolutely insane? Why would anybody wish for that?
Yeah.
You can't suck it up and have a conversation and work it out that way. You have to talk about taking up arms. You have no idea what you're talking about clearly, or you wouldn't want this.
Right. And it's there's just so much that's tangled up in all this right now. I think this also was more poignant for you this year. You learned some stuff about your grandfather.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that he had fought in the Battle of the Bulge, but I didn't really know. And I think maybe my father had told me, and I just didn't. I didn't recall. My brother had found a picture of my late paternal grandfather, and he'd put it on Ancestry.com, and I pulled it down and posted it on Facebook. And family members then jumped in and said, "Oh, this was the story." He was a forward artillery officer in Patton's army, and he received a Purple Heart at the Battle of the Bulge. And so, apparently he was quite heroic, which is amazing. And then other people told their stories. So a friend, Joanne McCoyne, she posted, my paternal grandfather, Arturo Pidone, served in the U.S. Army in World War I in Europe for 2 years. Then she had her dad served, and her husband served, and I so many people are coming out and saying, "Look, my family member served."
Yeah, I posted this morning a very famous speech that Ronald Reagan had given, and I think this is the one that he did at Normandy. But he talked about you don't have to look far to find heroes, and he mentions, of course, Arlington Cemetery and all the people that are buried there. But he tells the story of
a game for kids.
Yeah, the heroes are the people who put their lives on the line our safety, for our nation, for our ideals.
You know, one particularly ignorant person on my posting on my Facebook page made a comment about the French President Macron's comments yesterday at the War Memorial about, you know, talking about that nationalism is not a good thing.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to talk about this later. We do need to take a break because I have to address what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to address what he said. So with that, it's time for a break. I'm Marion Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we'll be right back.
All Roofing Company reminds all area listeners to take a moment and recognize our men and women in uniform who are serving our country at home and overseas. Take a few moments and write a letter of encouragement to those who are separated from family for months at a time. Their sacrifices at home and abroad help keep America strong and free. This reminder from All Roofing Company, serving the area with pride and integrity. For all your roofing needs and the job done right the first time. Call 951-203-4731. That's 951-203-4731. That's All Roofing Company, on the air because they care.
The Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands is serving up some really cool ice cream at La Micho Acana. Then get your chocolates and other delights from C's Candies. Moms and future moms who visit the mall can cool off and relax while they get treated like royalty at Shiny Nails or Francis Nails and then pampered at Texture Hair. The Tri-City Center is filled with retailers who care about you. Shop at the Tri-City Center in Redlands and see why they call it the mall with a heart. Hi folks, if you're still paying for electricity every month, it means you haven't signed up for the Inland Empire's #1 money savings program offered by Horizon Solar Power. Just call to qualify your home and Horizon will give you $100 plus pay your electric bill until 2020. It's that simple. Call, qualify, get $100 and no electric bill payments until 2020. So keep your money in your pocket and become energy independent today. Call 844-711-6996. That's 844-711-6996. Or click on one of our Stay Cool ads at KCAAradio.com. Drivers, when it's time to visit the DMV, avoid the long lines and save time by calling toll-free 833-DMV-LINE. That's 833-DMV-5463. If you're looking for a full or part-time sales position and you have radio, TV, or print media experience, KCAA has a great opportunity waiting for you that pays the highest commissions in the market. KCAA is the only station in the IE that broadcasts on 3 frequencies, so advertisers receive 3 ads for 1 low rate. This makes KCAA a must-buy for every local business. If you're interested in a sales position with us, email CEO@KCAAradio.com.
Are you or a loved one suffering from addiction? You're not alone. There is help, and people are getting help every day. Call Sheer Recovery now at 888-254-6801. That's 888-254-6801. Or go to sheerrecovery.com, spelled SHEER, recovery.com. If you have insurance through work or family, your treatment may be covered at little or no cost to you. Plus, you can't lose your job if you decide to seek help. Sheer Recovery offers all levels of treatment. We understand what you're going through and know how to help. Make the best decision of your life and call Sheer Recovery now, spelled SHEER. The number is 888-254-6801. That's 888-254-6801. The start of a better life begins here.
This is KCAA.
If you change your mind, take a chance. I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me. If you need me, let me know. Gonna be around. If you got no place to go when you're feeling down. If you're all alone, when the pretty birds have flown on the outside.
Welcome back. I'm Marion Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we are on The Brink, the morning show on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and FM 102.3. So continuing the discussion that we had before the break, this person essentially said that, because Macron said that nationalism is selfish. It's not it's not a good thing. Essentially, is what he said. Obviously there was a lot more to it, and what he's talking about. Now there are 3 there are three words that have become, the definitions have been shifting.
Yes.
Number one is globalist. So globalism, when you were, the code for globalism back during the time of Hitler was, if you were a globalist, what they're really talking about were global bankers. Essentially, they were talking about Jews.
Yeah.
That it was an anti-Semitic word, and that it had that connotation. Well, that's not true anymore. That's not what it means today. Really, you're talking about people who want no borders between countries. That's a globalist. But that's not what it used to be. The word patriot has been, it has always been a net good, right? That you love your country and that you are for your country. Although in the United States, patriot has started to mean that you are kind of a white nationalist, that you're kind of, that movement has wrapped themselves, has co-opted that word.
Yeah.
And so that's become a negative. Then there's nationalist. Now, a nationalist, especially from the European point of view, has always meant somebody who was my country first, above you. So when the Germans saying that Germany above all else, which Deutschland über alles, which was their Nazi national anthem, that what they were talking about, that kind of nationalism that gave them permission to bring tanks into France and Poland and the Czech Republic and everywhere else and destroy Europe.
Yeah.
And so, it's important that you understand that these words have different meanings to different people. And, when Macron was talking about how dangerous that is, what his perspective is that the pockmarks are still on the ground in France.
Yeah.
They were decimated by war in 2 world wars. And so for him, this is not abstract. This is not romanticized. This is, he's got family members alive or knows people in his country who dealt with the horrors of war on their soil.
Yeah.
We don't have that. Thank you, God. And I pray that we never do.
Here's the thing that other presidents have been able to do. They've been able to prioritize the needs of our country and still understand that we have a responsibility as a member of the family of nations to participate and be engaged with the rest of the world in a positive way.
Right.
Trump's whole shtick has been to simply say, screw the rest of the world, America first, and that's a type of nationalism that scares the heck out of a lot of these countries who really had to face Hitler in a way that we didn't.
So this particular individual, I don't want to say his name, was saying, the French are afraid of war. They're cowards, and he said this is a snobby Frenchman, and all of this crazy, who doesn't like our president, and it was like, do you not understand? I tried to explain that what that meant for somebody from the French point of view. He didn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care. So I got to answer the phone. Tobin, pick it up.
Yeah. So it's this whole idea about France being chicken or whatever. That's a major oversimplification of history. The French did have a French resistance. There were a lot of French people that were fighting back. Certainly they had a weak government that collapsed fairly quickly in World War II. But we owe France a great debt. They saved our bacon in our American Revolution. We would not have won that war and become the United States of America without French assistance.
I brought that up, and he said, I think his exact words were, you're overestimating the Frenchies' contribution.
If the French Navy hadn't been there, there's no way we would have won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am absolutely honored today to introduce our next guest, Andrew Roberts. He's a best-selling, award-winning author, and he has written a landmark biography of Winston Churchill based on extensive material from private letters and diaries to transcripts of war cabinet meetings. Andrew Roberts is the best-selling author of The Storm of War, a new history of the Second World War, Masters and Commanders, How Four Titans Won the War in the West, 1941 to 1945, and then Napoleon, a life Napoleon, A Life. He's the winner of the LA Times Book Prize for biographies. He has won many prizes, including the Wolfson History Prize and the British Army Military Book Award. He frequently writes for the Wall Street Journal and is the Roger and Martha Mertz Visiting Research Fellow at the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. He lives in London and often lectures in New York. Andrew Roberts, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great honor to be on.
So I can't think of a more appropriate day to be talking about Winston Churchill, and because he is, if you point to one person and say who secured the freedom of the free world during World War II, and it's him. So what was it like to explore his life when writing this biography?
Well, although it's taken me 4 years to write this biography, it's the 5th book I've written with Churchill in the title or the subtitle over the last 30 years. So I rather feel, like Churchill when he became Prime Minister, that all my past life has been but a preparation for this hour, for this trial.
So what are some, Winston Churchill obviously was part of I think he was in the Queen's Navy during World War I. Explain how that affected and impacted how he approached World War II.
He was the political head of the Royal Navy. He was the First Lord of the Admiralty, and he came up with this, on the face of it, brilliant strategic plan to get the Royal Navy through the Straits of the Dardanelles and moor it off Istanbul and basically knock the Ottoman Empire out of the central powers of Austria and Germany, which would have been a huge success and almost a war-winning tactic. But unfortunately, in the implementation of it, which he wasn't present at, we lost 6. The Allies lost 6 ships on the 18th of, 18th of March 1918 to mines that we didn't realise had been sown there. And then he overruled the chiefs of staff and put men on the Gallipoli Peninsula, and they fought desperate fighting there for months, which ultimately led to the killing or wounding of 160,000 Allied troops. So, he was a genius, but he was a flawed genius. He made many, many errors, including political errors in his life, but that was the central strategic error. The great thing about Winston Churchill is that he learned from his mistakes. Again and again, you see this in his career, and the mistake that he learned with regard to the Dardanelles was not to overrule the chiefs of staff. And in the whole of the Second World War, even though he could have constitutionally, because he was Minister of Defence as well as Prime Minister, he could have, but he never once overruled the chiefs of staff in the Second World War. And so this is a classic example of him learning from his mistakes.
Wow. Well, and I mistakenly said Queen's Army. It was her father, King George the Sixth, who was the monarch at the time. So, or I said Navy.
Well, actually, in the First World War, it's her grandfather, King George V.
Oh.
Yes.
I need to bone up on my history. I'm sorry.
No, but they're all called the same thing, so it's a bit more complicated. But he was, but it was King George VI, of course, who was in the Second World War, and that's the person with whom Churchill formed a very strong bond, to the point that the king actually called him his friend, and he was the only one of the king's 4 prime ministers who the king referred to by his Christian name.
Wow. So what did Churchill really think? I mean, you had access to his diaries. What did he really think of Roosevelt?
Yes, I was very fortunate in this book to have been allowed by the Queen to be the first Churchill biographer to be able to use her father, King George VI's diaries. And in the course of researching this wonderful new source, I discovered that Winston Churchill was much more, in private, much more caustic about the American alliance and President Roosevelt than he could possibly be in public. In public, of course, he had to thank the Americans for anything that we got from them. But in private, he saw the Second World War as a war for civilization and democracy against Hitler and the Nazis, and he couldn't understand why the Americans didn't want to get more closely involved earlier. And of course, ultimately, it took Hitler to declare war against America on the 11th of December 1941 to implication in the remarks that he makes to the king. He knew, of course, that the king was utterly to be trusted. The king wrote down everything that Churchill said on the Tuesday afternoon meetings that they had, lunchtime meetings, where they served themselves from the sideboard, because Churchill trusted the king with every secret, with the ultra-decrypt secrets, with the nuclear secrets, with where they were going to attack, with the hiring and firing of ministers and generals. It really was a very close relationship.
So in both World Wars, America was reticent to get involved. We got in after the sinking of the Lusitania in World War I. And, for World War II, it took Pearl Harbor and then Hitler declaring war. And that had to have been frustrated. We're supposed to have been the strong allies with the UK, but as the UK faced an existential threat, we twiddled our thumbs, across the water. And so I have to think that it was extraordinarily frustrating for the leadership in Britain.
Yes, but Churchill couldn't say so publicly, of course. And so you really only get this sense of frustration from these new sources that I've managed to use. And as I say, I'm the first of Churchill's biographers to be able to use them. So
what would you say was Churchill's biggest mistake?
Well, the Dardanelles catastrophe undoubtedly was the biggest mistake. He made lots of other ones. He was on the wrong side of history when it came to female suffrage. He got the gold standard, Britain returning to the gold standard, wrong in 1925. He got the abdication crisis wrong when he supported King Edward VIII. It was really there's a long and sort of rather sorry list of errors. But as I say, he did learn from each of them, and he also he went into most of them with from a principled position. He wasn't a dishonourable politician, but he was a genius, but a flawed genius, I think, is a worthy way of looking at it.
So do you think if he were Prime Minister today or involved in politics today, do you think he would be popular?
I think he'd be very good at politics today. I mean, one of the things about politicians is they're very good at adapting to all the modern techniques. I think he'd be extremely good on Twitter, for example, owing to the fact that he was able to, many of his best jokes are short and his best remarks are brief, and I think he'd be able to fit many of his sort of response to hecklers and things into 280 characters or fewer.
So one other question, because I know that we're running short of time. Did he ever doubt himself? As he was making decisions, and Britain really did face an existential threat from the Nazis. Did he doubt the decisions he was making?
No, he didn't. He had a extraordinary sense of self-belief. I think part of it came from just sheer social entitlement. He was the grandson of a duke, born in the Victorian era, born in a palace, and not just any old palace. He was born in Blenheim Palace, which even the royals envy. And so he had a complete sense of himself as a leader of men, and was therefore somebody who did have he'd been to Sandhurst, he'd fought on 4 continents, he'd held the great offices of state, many of them, like Home Secretary and Chancellor of the Exchequer. He really did arrive at the premiership fully formed, as it were, and that he did believe that all his past life had been but a preparation for this hour and this trial, and he was right.
Right.
So when he took these decisions, he did believe in all of them.
So we are out of time. Let people know, are you going to be doing a book tour, or how can they follow you on social media?
Well, I'm on Twitter, but and I've got a website. But yes, I'm doing an enormous book tour. I'm doing a 12,700-mile book tour around America before Christmas.
Wow!
So it's a bit as big as Churchill's own 1931 book tour, I'm proud to say.
Wow! Well, may the good weather follow you, Andrew Roberts. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for taking the 4 years to write this incredible book.
Thank you, Erin. I really enjoyed it.
So it's time for a break. I'm Erin Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we are on the brink, the morning show on KCAA. We'll be right back.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Carter. California Governor Jerry Brown is pushing for President Trump to declare a major disaster, which would allocate more federal emergency funds to help combat wildfires in the state. The death toll now stands at 31.
This morning, a staggering 72,000 homes remain threatened across California. A firefight still heating up as homes and lives are lost on both ends of the state.
NBC's Miguel Almaguer. President Trump thinks the nations of the world need to pay their fair share for protection. In morning tweets, Trump said he had a great trip to France where much was accomplished. He was there to mark the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. He said the U.S. pays large portions of other countries' military protection while also losing hundreds of billions of dollars in unfair trade deals. Trump says he told world leaders they must pay or protect themselves. Lisa Carter, NBC News Radio.
It's time for traffic on KCAA. I'm Erin Brinker. We have a SIG alert in Harupa Valley on the 60 eastbound before Pyrite Street. Carpool and left lanes are blocked due to police activity. Stop-and-go traffic is backed up from Pedley Road. In Paris on the 215 southbound after Harley Knox Boulevard, an accident has the shoulder blocked. Stop-and-go traffic is backed up from Van Buren. And finally in Hesperia on the 395 between the 15 and Joshua Street, there's some slow traffic. This has been your traffic report on KCAA. We are the stations that leave no listener behind. I'm Erin Brinker.
From the KCAA Weather Center, I'm Alvin Washington. Red flag and high wind warnings this morning. Sunshine, a high of 76. Clear this evening, low 43. Sunshine on Tuesday, high 76. Cloudy 46 Tuesday night. I'm Alvin Washington broadcasting live from the Tri-City Center at the 10 and 210 freeways. We are the trifecta of talk in Southern California, KCAA 102.3 FM, Riverside, 106.5 FM, Redlands, and the Legacy 1050 AM, Loma Linda, San Bernardino.
Drivers, when it's time to visit the DMV, avoid the long lines and save time by calling toll-free 833-DMV-LINE. That's 833-DMV-5463. KCAA, where every day is a great day.
A little bit of disregard, handful of complaints, but I can't help the fact that everyone can see these scars. I am what I want you to want, what I want you to feel, but it's like no matter what I do, I can't convince you.
Welcome back. I'm Erin Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we are on the brink, the morning show on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and FM 102.3. You know, everybody needs to go out and read this Churchill book.
And history. This is a great day for history. And Churchill has really sort of come back into our sort of popular conversations in the last several years. You and I watched several different cable movies that were made about him.
Well, and movies, just, and wide release movies, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of discussion about what his true historical impact was. And we could have talked to the author, Roberts?
Yes, Andrew Roberts.
Andrew Roberts. For the whole show, it's fascinating.
Absolutely, we only had 10 minutes, and one of the things that Churchill in his fight against Hitler, he really believed that he had supernatural protection, that the Lord had put him there. At least that was what it's my understanding, and I wonder if those discussions, if he had those discussions with the king, about this kind of big. The fight against evil, and that's what they were facing, was pure, unabashed, unmasked evil.
Yeah, what makes this book probably the more powerful, more interesting, is that he had access to resources that no other author has had access to. And that's really where the money is, right? That he can provide insights and information that we've not heard in any other forum, you know?
Yes.
And that's what a good biographer does, is they dig and find those missing pieces of the historical record and put them together.
You know, we have had 10 years of war or more here in the United States in the last 10 years, but it hasn't affected the American population at all. So during World War II, there was food rationing. Everybody was, women couldn't buy stockings because they would use it to make parachutes. Major factories had turned from making whatever it is they made, from automobiles to washing machines, had been turned over to make munitions or planes or tanks or whatever for the war effort. I mean, the whole country had to change the way it lived. Everybody
Complete
had fig to regard
mobilization.
to complete mobilization.
Yeah.
We have not experienced that here since then.
No, and it's interesting because even this past week, I've seen people posting pictures of their kids who were recently deployed to Afghanistan. You know?
Yes.
And talking about, my son is over there, my daughter's over there, and
we forget.
And it's how different it is today, the experience it is versus then. And I think also, back then the casualty counts were so
high.
And certainly at the peak of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, there were some numbers that were high by our standards, but they don't even come close to what these guys were experiencing. I mean,
No.
You saw at the end of World War I, 10,000 people on the day, and we were getting 1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Or 1,000 a month. Yeah,
Yes.
in Iraq, 1,000 a month. At the peak.
At the peak. And because it's happening over there and we're sitting in our living rooms, essentially acting like it's a football game.
Yeah.
And it's not. War is serious. War is hell. One other person on my Facebook page said that, she said, I have a great uncle who fought, and they never talked about the valor. They never talked about, the what heroes they were. And I think war is hell. I think they came home and said, I am going to create the life that I want for my family and for my country. And they think they talked about it amongst themselves. They were involved with the VFW. They did, they got together in veterans groups. But when they were with their families, they didn't think about the past.
No, and we had a culture at that time that was much more stoic and much less focused on the individual aggrandizement and whatnot. Today, everyone's looking for their 15 seconds of fame,
right?
And they will say and do the stupidest stuff online to get a little bit of attention, even to the point of lying about stuff. And we have stories of stolen valor today,
yes,
that just disgust me, with these people who are trying to pretend that they were there for these historical moments.
Yeah, that's a special kind of disgusting,
right? And so it's the culture has shifted so much, and so I think it adds to the greatness of these men and women who served during the World War I or World War II, because they were so stoic and really weren't looking for anything for themselves. They served their nation, and when they came home, they did the best they could to sort of reestablish a normal life and have as minimal impact on their wives and their children.
Yes.
And not scare them with all the horrible things that they had experienced.
And I would add Korea into
Korea
that
as well, yeah.
Vietnam had a different dynamic, and they certainly those soldiers came home to an ungrateful, hostile nation. Which war is hell in itself. To come home to that has to just add salt into the wounds.
And I don't know how the folks at that time period could blame the soldiers.
No, they were drafted.
I get it. I get being angry at some of the generals and the political leaders, but how could you do that to the soldiers?
And they did. They were despicable to those soldiers.
Terrible.
So, I guess the point that I want to get across today, what I've been talking about today, is that we cannot take the issue of war lightly.
No.
We can't. This is not a football game. This isn't just watching it on television and saying and thinking that somehow Americans are preordained to be so much more wonderful than everybody on the earth, that no matter what, we would have won the revolution. We would have won, the wars that we've been in. No, we didn't know that going into it.
No.
People didn't know. And it was because the bravery of men and women throughout our country added to the bravery of other countries that we were able to defeat just horrible evils.
Yeah.
So, on this Veterans Day, it's 100 years since the armistice was signed, and that World War I came to a close. I think that we really need to reflect on how bloody the 20th century was, and work as hard as we can to not repeat those mistakes.
Yeah. It's history has a habit of repeating itself, but we do have the ability to learn from history. We don't have to go down those same paths again. We don't.
Yeah, we don't. So let's take our final break. I'm Erin Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we will be right back. Oh, I don't think I've said the name of the show. We are On the Brink, the morning show on KCAA. Now we'll be right back.
NFL Sunday Week 10 is history. Drew Brees and the streaking Saints continue to cruise. Brees passed for 3 touchdowns as New Orleans tops the Bengals 51-14 in Cincinnati for their 8th straight win.
I think so far this is our most complete game from start to finish. Just both sides of the ball.
The Saints improved to 8-1 elsewhere in that tough NFC South. The Falcons' 3-game winning streak snapped after a 28-16 loss to the Browns in Cleveland. Rookie running back Nick Chubb ran for 176 yards as Cleveland snapped their 4-game losing streak. In the AFC, the Titans trounced the Patriots 34-10 in Nashville. The Patriots' 6-game winning streak snapped. They fall to 7-3. In college, in his second stint with the program, Bobby Petrino out as Louisville head football coach again. The university dismissing him Sunday after a 2-8 start to the season, including 7 straight losses. And look out, it's awards week in Major League Baseball. Rookies of the year in both leagues will be honored tonight. That's sports. Jake Corwin, NBC News Radio.
Welcome to the Tom Hartman Program. I'm live right here, Monday through Friday.
Are you ready for the #1 progressive talk show host in America?
71% of people say that the information they get from their friends and family, they take more seriously than the stuff they read in the media. Only 42% of Americans think the media is the most credible source of news. And therefore, if you're informed, if you're awake, you need to be telling your friends. You need to be talking to your friends and family.
24-time New York Times best-selling author and has nearly 6.5 million listeners nationwide.
These are crimes. These are international crimes against humanity. And I would love to see somebody held to account in this administration.
Introducing Tom Hartman on KCAA Radio, weekday afternoons starting at 2.
Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you always tired and worn out? Is it affecting your work and personal life? Well, South Pacific Sleep Lab can help you out. South Pacific Sleep Lab provides a personal study of your sleep patterns. With their trained specialists, they will diagnose your sleep habits and will give you a prognosis for getting a great relaxing night of sleep. South Pacific Sleep Lab has locations throughout Southern California, including Fontana, and will provide transportation to any of their locations at no cost to you. To find out more, give them a call at 844-SAD-5050. That's 844-SAD-5050. South Pacific Sleep Lab. Start resting easy and sleeping sound today.
You're listening to KCAA, your good neighbor along the way.
Born, the nurses all gathered round, and they gazed in wide wonder at the joy they had found.
Welcome back. I'm Erin Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we are On the Brink, the morning show on KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, at FM 102.3. So lots of news out of Florida this weekend.
Yeah, before this election got started, there was a lot of talk about a big blue wave, right? And on election day, that blue wave seemed to have fizzled. There was some big races that the Democrats thought they were going to win that they didn't win. Well, hold on. Maybe they did win them. We're not sure now because they're not done counting, and these races have been closing and closing and closing and narrowing as they're counting. And Florida is sort of ground zero for that. The governor's race, Andrew Gillum was the Democrat who was expected to win, and on election night was behind. Well, now they're still counting, and the gap has been narrowing. And the same thing with the Senate race there, where the current governor, Rick Scott, had a good lead or decent lead on election night, but Bill Nelson, the sitting senator, the lead is narrowed, and so now both those races are going to a recount, and there's all kinds of crazy shenanigans going on surrounding this recount. And I think that no matter how it turns out, we're going to have sort of a similar thing to what we had with President George W. Bush, where you're going to have both sides saying whoever the winner is illegitimate, right? And they're going to point to inconsistencies in the way that things were counted and the way things were handled.
Well, they do know that ballots that were thrown out have found themselves mixed back into the regular ballots. And the woman who is in charge
in Broward
County has already gotten in trouble from the courts for mishandling ballots.
Yeah.
She shredded ballots that she was specifically told not to shred.
Yeah, she's a real character. Brenda Snipes, right?
I think she's crooked as the day is long.
Yeah, she was been accused of incompetence, gross mismanagement. She blocked people from going in for a couple of hours to, while they were doing some stuff. I mean, she's just
that alone should have precluded her from ever being anywhere near ballots.
Yes, and she admits that her staff has admitted there were 22 absentee ballots that had been previously rejected because the signature on the return envelope did not match the one on file, but they got mixed in with the good ballots and counted.
Of course they did.
And of course, now that they've been mixed in, she says it's impossible to fix because there are 205 legal ballots, and you can't just throw them all out. We don't know which ones were the bad ones. So.
I have to be honest with you. If this were up to me, I think that in those counties, they would have to vote again.
Right.
Because it's so tainted that it's just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
That these ballots, that this has been handled the way it's handled. And they have found, and I'm doing air quotes, boxes of ballots like at the post office, and they're saying, they were left alone because of the shooting. Really? Or the bombings. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Because, that was a while ago and that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, and unless you can have a clear chain of custody and we know exactly where these were under lock and key, it's too sketchy. So there's going to be a real battle, a legal battle over this. And of course, the latest thing is that there's a deadline, right? All of this stuff has to be counted by 3:00 on Thursday.
They're not going to make it.
And a whole bunch of these places are saying we can't meet that deadline
because apparently people in Florida can't count.
And so this becomes the question: what happens come 3:00 Thursday if they're not done counting? Do you just say, well, whatever you've got counted at that point, or do you say we're going to give you extra time? I don't know how this is going to get resolved. I just know that it's a mess.
Well, and in some, from what I understand, in some of the boxes of ballots that they found, they were all Democrat ballots.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood of that happening? Really? Right. All Democrat, all of them?
Yes.
Not a single Republican in there?
Yes.
Come on. No, that stinks like that. Something is rotten in Denmark.
Yeah. Well, again, whatever the outcome of this thing, I think both sides are going to claim that the other side just cheated and whatever. And you saw this sort of in the run-up to this election with all the talk of voter suppression and all this other stuff that was going on from the Democrats, trying to sort of set up their folks that even if they lost, that it wasn't that they really lost, it was stolen from them, because that's a great wedge issue to turn out your people the next time,
Yeah.
And if you can paint the other side as corrupt, then your people have to show. We have to get rid of the corruption. I'm frankly spent by all of it. I really am.
I'm just disgusted.
Yeah.
By all of it. I'm disgusted. I am disgusted.
Yeah. Now, we don't have a recount going on, but they're still counting in Arizona, and it looks like the Democrat in the Senate seat there has taken a fairly commanding lead now, and it looks like she's building on that lead. And, of course, on election night, she was behind, and so that one's flipped, and so it looks like that's going to go to a Democrat. And this is going to sound terrible, But Jeff Flake has got to be laughing a little bit because, if Trump had treated him nicely, Jeff Flake probably would have still been there and probably would have won fairly easily. But because of the fight with Trump and because of how Trump behaved,
I don't think that the president is capable of being on his best behavior.
Yeah.
I don't think he has it in him.
No, I know.
He is compulsive.
And that was
in his ability, in his the way he reacts to people, reacts to things, the way he punches back, the way he puts people down. It's compulsive.
And that was Jeff Flake's argument against him. And in a state like Arizona that has a large number of Hispanics and immigrants, the way that Trump ran the end of this campaign certainly boosted the turnout for the Democrats in that state. At least that's what they're saying. And, took a seat that was eminently winnable in what's been a red state and turned it blue. Thank you, Trump.
Thank you, Trump.
And we're seeing similar things with some of these California seats that on election night looked like the Republicans had won, but as they're counting all the absentees and the various stuff that's coming in, they're narrowing. We've seen a couple of them already flip to Democrats, and a couple more that are kind of iffy, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, all I can say is that that the president made his bed.
Yeah.
And do I want Democratic leadership, in this country? No, I don't. I don't want this country to lean to veer to the left, to become socialist.
Yeah.
Like people like Ocasio-Cortez, who is, she's a child, and we're going to give everybody free everything.
But I don't want the xenophobic nationalists running the country either.
I don't want the xenophobic nationalists running the country either.
Right.
So where is the sanity? Where are the people in the middle who are decent people? And there's been lots of people posting, and there's been people talking about, if you turn off the news, America's a pretty great place.
Yeah.
Turn off the news.
Yeah.
As I say this, but don't turn off this show.
Right.
Because we're awesome.
So for me, the guy that I still kind of like, and he was my candidate in the last election, was John Kasich, and I like him. He's hitting all the right notes throughout this Trump presidency, and Ohio was one of the bright spots for the Republicans because they had the 1-2 punch of the people that were fired up by Trump, but also the sane Republicans that were still on board because Kasich has done such a great job there. And with that, those two groups of Republicans united, they were able to swamp the Democrats there. And again, it was the governor's race in Ohio. All the polling showed the Democrat, Cordray, winning by 5 to 10%, and he ended up losing. Why? Because the Republicans were united with the sane party and the insane party. The sane Republicans, the insane Republicans. They were all together, Aaron.
In one camp.
In one camp. And look what they were able to do.
Well, I have not been as warm to Kasich as you, because I tend to be more conservative than you.
Yeah.
But if I have a choice between Kasich and the firebrand who fires up the base on the other side.
Yeah.
So meaning Trump, I'm going to pick Kasich.
Yeah.
And not to say that the economy's not doing well. It's humming. It's doing great.
Yeah.
There are things that are going really well in this country. But if somebody would take his Twitter away, take his phone away, and just.
But a mainline Republican would have had those same economic policies as Trump. I mean,
That's true. That's true.
Without all the other abrasiveness that is
Trump
destroying us, tearing us apart.
So with that, we're at the end of our show for today. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Aaron Brinker.
And I'm Tobin Brinker.
And we are On the Brink, the morning show on KCAA.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
I'm John Lesher, CNBC Radio. It's Veterans Day. The stock market is open, but the bond market is closed. The futures are down this morning, coming off a sharp sell-off on Friday, with a rebound in oil prices offering some relief. The Dow is poised to drop as many as 40 points. We're at the start of a retail-heavy earnings week that will show if rising wage costs are also going to hit profits. That could become more of an issue as earnings per share growth for S&P 500 companies is expected to slow to about 9% next year. Alibaba is flat after the Chinese e-commerce giant cashed record sales on Sunday during its Singles Day, which is a lot like Amazon's Prime Day. But growth at Alibaba is at its lowest ever. Altria is down 4.5% after the Wall Street Journal reported the U.S. health regulator is planning to pursue a ban on menthol cigarettes. Again, the futures are lower this morning. John Lesher, CNBC Radio.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services.
800-316-4761. That's 800-316-4761. 800-316-4761.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-501-3689 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-501-3689 for your free author submission kit. Again, 800-501-3689.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Carter. California Governor Jerry Brown is pushing for President Trump to declare a major disaster, which would allocate more federal emergency funds to help combat wildfires in the state. The death toll now stands at 31.
This morning, a staggering 72,000 homes remain threatened across California. A firefight still heating up as homes and lives are lost on both ends of the state.
NBC's Miguel Almaguer. President Trump thinks the nations of the world need to pay their fair share for protection. In morning tweets, Trump said he had a great trip to France, where much was accomplished. He was there to mark the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. He said the U.S. pays large portions of other countries' military protection, while also losing hundreds of billions of dollars in unfair trade deals. Trump says he told world leaders they must pay or protect themselves. Lisa Carter, NBC News Radio.
It's time for traffic on KCAA. I'm Erin Brinker. In Paris, on the 215 southbound before the Ramona Expressway, a crash is in the center divider. Stop-and-go traffic is backed up from Harley-Knox Boulevard. This has been your traffic report on KCAA. We are the stations that leave no listener behind.
Randy's Equipment Repair remind everyone that one of the keys to locating missing children is getting current info into the hands of the proper authorities. Keep recent photos and always remember what they're wearing. Have your child fingerprinted at an early age because kids change, but fingerprints don't. This reminder from Randy's Equipment Repair, serving our community with pride for over 30 years. For the specialists in construction equipment repair services, call Randy today at 909-855-7812. That's 909-855-7812. That is Randy's Equipment Repair, on the air because they care.
The Tri-City Shopping Center in Redlands is home to some of the best bargain shopping in the region. Cityware, Style for Less, and Dollar Tree, to name just a few. Friendly shop owners and staff are waiting for you to stop in for the many specials and bargains they're excited to share. The Tri-City Shopping Center is located just off I-10 between Alabama and the Tennessee exits in Redlands. Make it your home for all your shopping needs, and you'll know why the Tri-City Center is called the Mall with a Heart.
Welcome to the Tom Hartman Program. I'm live right here, Monday through Friday.
Are you ready for the #1 progressive talk show host in America?
71%.
of people say that the information they get from their friends and family, they take more seriously than the stuff they read in the media. Only 42% of Americans think the media is the most credible source of news. And therefore, if you're informed, if you're awake, you need to be telling your friends. You need to be talking to your friends and family.
24-time New York Times best-selling author and has nearly 6.5 million listeners nationwide.
These are crimes. These are international crimes against humanity. And I would love to see somebody held to account in this administration.
Introducing Tom Hartman on KC.